You won't want to hear this, but I'm always going to share the good and the bad with you. But another analyst that I follow has flipped bearish, and yet another analyst beyond that one is entertaining the idea that we're actually in a bear market right now. Now, mind you, I follow dozens and dozens of chart analysts, and almost all of them are convinced, even right now, that we're still in a bull market. But I want to arm you with perspectives that are contrary to that, even if both you and I don't want them to be true, okay? Because I just want to believe whatever is actually true, even if it's not something I'd prefer to be the case. And so I'll just tell you this: I personally am still not convinced that we're in a bear market, but we'll talk about it. And one of the latest arguments you'll see all over social media is about the Bitcoin death cross, which just occurred. So I'll explain. Also got a ton of analysis. Market's mostly ranging. I mean, you got a little bit of green here, but nothing to write home about. XRP $2.23, Bitcoin at $95,653. So we're still waiting for the next notable thing to unfold here. Here's a post from chart analyst Blunt's, very popular analyst, 329,000 followers. And he's thinking the bear market actually might be a real thing right now. Here's a Bitcoin price chart, and he wrote the following. Not really what anyone wanted to see, but that brief strength was an ABC up. Losing $100,000 is a pretty strong psychological level to lose. The high time frames are now starting to look dicey on Bitcoin. I think we need to start entertaining the idea that the cycle may be over. Okay, so there's another one that's flipped, and if this continues to happen, more analysts that I follow flip, I'm absolutely going to highlight it on the channel, even though it's not what I want to be the case, and even if I'm not compelled to believe what they're stating here. And this is the case here. I just am not compelled. For tons of reasons I will continue to highlight on this channel, but I want you guys to be armed with perspective from tons of analysts who have great track records, and you come to your own conclusions. You're adults, you're smart people, you're big boys and girls, you can figure out what you think makes the most sense here. I'm going to keep taking in information, and if I ever feel compelled to believe that, hey, we now have sufficient data to believe it's most probable we're in a bear market, I'll come on the channel and I'll say that. We are not there, though. Not for me. Here's a post from Frecky. Now, Frecky has been in crypto since 2011. He's been in the XRP community basically since it was like a thing, basically since the beginning. And he actually does have a career in finance, a decades-long career, so he gets it, let's just say. And so he shared this post just this morning. He said, disbelief. Zooming out, this will be painful for most. This range is a nasty shakeout for emotions/sentiment. When I listen to retail fear/greed, I believe it's well below 10. So he's saying, of course, on that 0 to 100 scale, where 0 is extreme fear and 100's extreme greed. He's saying if you listen to regular people here, basically the retail, you'd think that it's below 10. But then he writes, when I speak with institutional, I would gauge their fear/greed realistically at 75 plus. So more on the greed end. And so he says entirely two different worlds. That's right. The smart money versus the typical living retail speculator. And again, he works in finance. He's seeing this on a daily basis and just sharing his opinion with you. He says $100,000 is a large psychological resistance, excuse me, just as I said it would be years ago. Once sentiment flips, and it will run the entirely opposite direction with retail emotions. Your loudest noise is now. Additionally, that loud noise source has the largest social media numbers. It also has the smallest capital on X. Smaller participants, yet loudest reaction. Yep, that sounds about right. I absolutely buy that. Now, somebody named Jimmy here in the community had a question for him. He said, so when you are looking at charts and historical data, does the death cross not indicate anything to you from previous cycles? I'm not bearish. I'm just wondering what indicators people choose to follow and win. And Frecky shared a little snippet here about the death cross and noted that it often marks local bottoms and that it's a lagging indicator here. And so the Bitcoin death cross did hit. Doesn't mean we're in a bear market, though. There are all sorts of analysts that were saying that today. I'm going to share the opposing viewpoint because I know that is indeed not the case. It's not a guarantee. There's this post from chart analyst Papeso. He said, we've seen this 3 times. And this chart's going back to September of last year, 2024. Death cross, then bottom, then new all-time high. He says, today we're only at death cross, be ready. So death cross, it's just a misnomer because of the scary sounding name, But the misnomer is that, we're in a bear market now. Well, here's 3 times it's happened in just over a year, and that was not the case in all-time highs followed. Now, that post was reposted by chart analyst Credible Crypto just this morning, and he went into further detail on this topic. And he says, this perfectly demonstrates why I pay little attention to moving average, MACD, or other lagging indicator crosses / closes, etc. The death cross gets its name because it's supposed to be a bearish trigger. It occurs when the 50-day moving average crosses below the 200-day moving average and is supposed to signal the start of a bear market / downtrend, hence the name death cross. Despite this, the last 3 death crosses on Bitcoin actually marked our local bottoms, all within 10 days or less of the cross and within 10% or less from our bottom. In every actual bear market, we eventually, at some point, get a bearish cross of the 50 and 200 DMAs as prices trend down. This is natural / to be expected when price is bleeding for a long enough period of time. But these crosses only take time into consideration. They do not account for price in market structure. And so a bearish moving average cross with no bearish shift in market structure is essentially just a false signal. The reality is that just because every bear market experiences a death cross doesn't mean that every death cross signals an impending bear market. Unfortunately, this false equivalency is often perpetuated by analysts who point to bullish or bearish crosses of lagging time-based indicators as arguments for bullish or bearish price action in the future. Yeah, and he's right. And I've seen tons of analysts pop up in my feed, people freaking out, oh my God, the death cross again. I'm like, no, I'm not a chart guy and I knew that. But anyway, he says, it just doesn't work that way. The same can be said for bullish or bearish closes above / below certain time-based MAs. Without taking key price levels and market structure shifts into consideration, it's all just unnecessary and often misleading noise. Spot on. Chart analyst Psychedelic was delivering the same message here. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read this whole post, but he was noting the same thing here. You can pause if you want to read this here. But yeah, says what you wrote here, I'll read part of it. The whole point is that over the last 14 years, the death cross has signaled at least a local bottom with a following 45% minimum rally after. And that's a Bitcoin chart on your screen right here. So, and that's why he said, based on historic precedent, you shouldn't have to wait long to have the bottom confirmed and then the market move to the upside if history is to kind of rhyme with itself. That's the argument that he's making. Chart analyst Crow argued the same thing here. The death cross usually happens at the bottoms, and the bottom usually happens when everything looks like shit. Bitcoin. And then the Nijing Tropic account reposted that. They, of course, are the co-founders of on-chain analytics firm Glassnode. I'm a big fan of Glassnode. And they wrote, the night is darkest right before dawn. Wall Street will load up on cheap coins. Liquidity spigot about to open. Okay, that's the right outlook in my opinion. If you look at where liquidity is heading, it's just crazy to think we're going to have this massive influx in capital and it's just not going to make it to risk on assets. You got to factor in the macro. That's a huge reason that I'm just not bearish here. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I am not convinced. I'm just telling you my personal opinion. I'm just a regular dude, though. I'm not a finance guy, but convince me. This is how humans come to decide things in life in general. You look at, if you genuinely want the truth, you look at the strongest arguments on both sides, and you're just going to view one side as more compelling than the other. And right now, the bulls got me. The bulls argument is much more compelling to me. And once you it includes factoring in historic precedent, of course, here. And so that's why I keep saying most of the analysts that I follow, almost all of them, are absolutely convinced that we're still in a bull market. So yeah, as more flip bearish, and there have been a few, admittedly, I'll keep highlighting them, but that's a minority opinion out of the analysts that I follow. Here's a post from Alex Becker. He says, it's not that I know the market will go up. And by the way, he's one of the more well-known analysts out there in crypto, period, 1.3 million followers. He says, it's not that I know the market will go up. It's that I know if it does, alts will almost immediately be 5 to 10x what they are, easily, on the low end. There's plenty of reasons 2026 could be the biggest year in crypto ever. You'll never see this risk to reward anywhere else, take it or leave it. Yeah, so I think that's the right mindset, because even though we could go lower, the risk to reward ratio, it's too substantial. And so somebody said, so you're saying you're bullish, I like you. And Alex Becker said, I'm not anything. I just know I'll lose 50 to 60% if we keep going down, but I'll make 20x if we go up. I'll take that fucking bet. That's what he says. Yeah, that's pretty much my mindset. And even if we do go into a bear market, eventually you're going to have a bull market at some point in the future, so I'm not worried about it. I have a really long time horizon, so I'm not going to freak out about it. I can't control time anyway. Here's a post from Crypto Wizard. This is Total 3 denominated in Bitcoin. Total 3, of course, is the top 125 coins by market cap, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so I wrote, is this normal? Under the hood, something weird is happening. Fear is at new heights, yet Total 3, when pitched against Bitcoin, has broken its multi-month downtrend and is soaring upside with 9.9 million in sight. Folks, is that what happens when you're entering the depths of a very scary bear market? Because I'm thinking no. I'm thinking the answer is no. Here's a post from Gordon. Alts/BTC 4-year RSI downtrend is over. It's finally time. So that's the top 125 coins by market cap, denominated in Bitcoin, so priced against Bitcoin. And he's saying, look at that RSI. Downtrend is over. Kind of interesting. So, different analysts noticing very similar things here at the same moment. Always catches my attention. Here's a post from Crypto Insight UK. Talking about XRP. He says, genuinely, can you argue with this, XRP? I know people are emotional, but take a breath. And so he shared a little screen grab from his newsletter, which reads as follows. Looking to XRP, things get exciting. I know market sentiment is extremely low, and I get it, but XRP isn't bearish. It's just not. We've held a range for over a year on top of previous 7-year resistance. During this period, we've seen the largest liquidation event in the history of crypto. FTX was the previous liquidation king, with $2 billion being liquidated during lows of the market and marking next to the bottom of the bear market. October 10th was 10 times the size, liquidating $20 billion in positions. This is marked above by the wick you can see. We reclaimed our current range instantly as all long positions were wiped out of the market, as I discussed. Furthermore, during this time, the weekly RSI has reset all the way down to the same area we saw the initiation of the move from 50 cents to $3.30, all whilst still holding this range. Okay, so there's a bullish take on XRP, and that is in line with what I see from almost 100% of the analysts that I follow. Take it for what it's worth, folks. It's true, though. XRP has been continuing to show tremendous strength here. It's just at a new level compared to where it was a little over a year ago. Here's a post from chart analyst Galaxy. This is from this morning. It's an XRP BTC chart. He says, XRP versus Bitcoin chart looks primed for a run. The strength during this market correction should not be ignored. And so he's another bull here. He thinks it's going way, way, way higher. And so that's why it's been cool to see XRP hit a new all-time high against the dollar. We still have not seen XRP hit a new all-time high against Bitcoin since 2017. Is it just never going to happen? Because I'm thinking it's probably going to happen. At some point in history, it'll hit a new all-time high. The best is yet ahead, folks. Here's a post from chart analyst Ali Martinez. TD flashes a buy signal on XRP, hinting at a possible weekend rebound. So in the short term, he's seeing something bullish here at a time where even on a higher time frame, other analysts are saying XRP looks primed. Well, you'll love to see it. Here's a post from Charting Guy. He's one of the analysts I was referencing at the outset of the video, though. So he wrote, expecting a very nice run for this period. Some stronger coins, i.e. XRP, have already bottomed for this current correction. Some might take until early mid-December to chop around and bottom out. Then, and you can see he's got little chart emojis going up, he says, in late January, we reevaluate whether we're in a bear market or not. So in the short term, he is thinking higher, but even he is open to the concept that we could actually be in a bear market. He wants to see more data first, though. So he hasn't fully flipped, but he's thinking that may be the case. And so somebody responded to him and said, $5 XRP easy in 6 to 8 weeks. And he responded to that and said more like, $8 to 10. But see, and this is what I'm saying. It's like he hasn't actually flipped bearish. $8 within the next 10 weeks. I would be very happy to see that personally. I would be thrilled. Here's a post from chart analyst Tara indicating that she's thinking, of course, and this is just, indicating, of course, if Bitcoin rises, that XRP is going to be dragged up with it. And so she's saying, Bitcoin to about $130,000 means XRP at $7. And then Bitcoin at about $150,000 means XRP at $9. And I know some people think that's far too conservative, and maybe those people are correct. XRP, maybe it does go way higher. I don't make price predictions. I don't pretend to know. But it's not crazy. There are people speculating 15, 20, 25, 30 bucks for XRP this cycle. It's not crazy. I don't know if it's going to get hit or not. It's just not my shtick to get into the price prediction game. But I know enough to know that you do get those types of big moves in crypto at times. Chart Nerd has not flipped at all. He's insisting that, you can see XRP hit $13 and then potentially as high as $27. He shared tons of posts along these lines. Then there was this post from chart analyst E. Greg Crypto. He says, XRP rejecting facts. Why? Honest and sincere question. Why are so many TA analysts rejecting this wave count, especially wave 4? Wave 4 can absolutely be irregular or expanded corrective, and in this structure, we clearly need to close above wave B to launch the 5th impulsive wave. So why the denial? Why ignore a valid Elliott wave structure just because it doesn't fit the bias? Says, I'm open to critical feedback. If you disagree, then tell me why. And so he's still targeting here, as you can see, upwards of $27.16 at this particular level. He still finds this to be perfectly valid. So I know that sentiment is complete garbage out there. I know people are fearful. This is normal in crypto. It just is. It doesn't, just because you feel fear, it doesn't mean that everything's going to go down in flames. This asset class is here to stay, and if you have a long enough time horizon, you'll recognize everything's fine. The fundamentals for XRP have never been stronger, so even if price goes down, doesn't mean it's going to zero. Take it for what it's worth. I could not be more optimistic and excited as an XRP holder. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea.